If you go to bookedin.com/Eddie, you guys can redeem your offer today for 50% off your first 3 months. So shout out to today's sponsor. That's Booked In. They're my scheduling app, and that's what makes things like this possible. Because a lot of times I'll come in here at 6 a.m. I'll do haircuts either at 6 a.m. or I'll set aside some time to film content for you guys. So what's up, you guys? Welcome back to the YouTube Barber Academy, where we have over 800 videos to help you learn. Now, I'm just going to warn you, this video is for barbers who are in training, people who are serious about learning how to cut hair, because I am going to break down every single part of this haircut and the tools used, the setups, and I'm literally going to go through all of that. So if you're ready, let's lock in. If you're not a barber, just keep it moving, all right? This is the YouTube Barber Academy. We call it that for a reason. So to start out with, we have our square chart that actually began last week. And as you see, we have our habitual offender, Sonny, and then we have Ed, Johan, everybody in the shop, right? Now, I might have let one go, but pretty much everybody else is good. So we're gonna erase this board, and we're gonna be using this today to help you guys understand what's going on. So I want you guys to think of what we're about to do today more as a lesson than a tutorial. You're probably gonna spend like an hour with me today, and I guarantee you're gonna pick something up, even if you are an advanced barber, especially if you're a beginner barber. And we're gonna break down everything that you could ever want to know about a basic men's fade. This is gonna be a skin fade with a 4 on top, which is also gonna make it very easy for me to communicate. So I guarantee you, one of the reasons why you guys are struggling is because you do not have your stuff set up in a way that's going to help you succeed. So we're gonna break that down in detail today. And the first thing I want you to do, and I want you to do this with me, I want you to fill out this chart real quick. Let's do it together. If you can draw a perfect circle, good for you. I can't, so I'm just gonna use this right here. We're just gonna make a perfect circle. Beside that, I want you to draw a triangle that looks like this. So at the bottom of our triangle, we're gonna put skin. If you guys don't hear it in my voice, I got a little bit of a sinus infection, but that wasn't enough for me to stop from coming in here today and breaking this one down for you guys. Today's client is actually gonna have a number 4 on top, but we're gonna do this. We're gonna start with a number 2 on top here. I view skin fades and really any other type of blending in almost 2 different parts. The first part is the blending that takes place above the parietal ridge. If I put a comb flat on the side of my head, it's right where the comb leaves the head. That can be done into some really long hair, or in this case, it could be done into a number 4. The steps that happen below are completely different than the steps that happen above that, where we might be blending into some longer hair. We might be using clipper over comb, and we're gonna be going through a 6-phase approach today to show you guys a really good blueprint that you can use too to do all your haircuts. Now, the 6 phases are not designed to be used in order. They're more so designed to communicate. And obviously we're gonna start out with phase 1. So I'm gonna put a P and then I'm gonna put a number 1 here. So if I asked you to go ahead and shave somebody's head with a number 2, anybody watching this video right now could easily do that, right? However, if I told you I wanted to get the sides a little bit shorter for this client, what number could I use and go into that number 2 and leave the top alone that wouldn't create another line? You guys could drop an answer down below in the comment section. But the answer would be a 1.5 in the open position. So open means that it's gonna leave the hair longer. Closed means it's gonna cut the hair closer. So this is in the closed position. We are going to open it. Open's gonna leave the hair longer. Closed is gonna cut closer. So we're gonna put a 1.5 open. You can cut all the hair on the bottom and you could stop before you get to that number 2 and you'll create something of a blend, all right? The next step would be I'll close it and I'll do a 1.5 closed. The next step would be a 1 open. The next step would be a 1 closed. Now we have a half guard, open, half guard, closed. Now we just have open, closed, trimmer, and then skin, which will take place with the electric shaver. There always will be some combination of using all of these steps. And now that you've written this down in your notebook and you're familiar with it, later in the haircut when you're like, hey Ed, What do you think my haircut needs? I think it's just about right, but I got a little problem. I'm going to tell you, look at your chart, try the step above first, try the step below. But one of these steps is going to get that blend worked out for you. The trouble is actually going to begin when we get down into this area here. I would say from about the one closed all the way down to skin. So that's going to be like a subcircle. We're going to work on that in a few minutes. One of the reasons why I have this triangle along the other side here that starts from skin and goes up to a number 2. If I was to see like a microscopic version alongside of the head of a fade, I'm going to see it blending up from nothing and slowly getting longer. And that's what this represents. So if it goes the same, 1.5 open, 1.5 closed, 1 open, 1 closed, half open, half closed, open, closed, trimmer, skin. So now if your triangle slowly gets longer all the way up into that number 2, you're going to have a good blend. Now, if your triangle looks something more like this, as an example, obviously this would be something that had some lines in it. So we need to figure out exactly how we're going to work all this out. Even if you did all of this correct, every single step correctly, everybody's hair type is a little bit different. And everybody's curvature of the scalp and the amount of density and all of these things will come over time. You'll understand how to deal with these things. But this is the basics of what every single skin fade will look like. The area that I told you was going to be most difficult was going to be, let's say, the one close, and we're going to go down to skin. I will put that trimmer line right here, and one closed ended all the way up here. So here's the area that we really got to blow up to understand why setting our tools is so important. A lot of people, myself included, to remove this trimmer line would like to set in an open taper guideline. So all that means is we're going to take all the guards off, open this up, and we're going to create a guideline. Usually, I like to do it about the width of a finger, depending on how compressed I want the fade to be. But the width of a finger is usually going to be good, but we're just doing this for an example. Above this guideline here, we're going to have the half guard in here somewhere, and I'm going to put open. So somewhere in there, there's going to be the half guard. I like to skip the half guard until the very end of the haircut. And there is a certain process that we're going to use when we get into this example. I'm going to show you guys how I like to do this. I like skipping steps. I think it's a good thing, and then circling back and filling in those steps. So let's talk about this open taper to remove the harshest guideline, which is usually our trimmer. So to do that, we'll take usually something with a fade blade on it. Now, this is not really where you want to use your taper blade. However, our diamond cut blade will function a lot more like a fade blade. The diamond cut pattern, what it actually does is it straightens out curly hair and it feeds it into the cutter. Now, if you look at the taper blade, it's curved. Now, what the taper blade is going to do is it's going to provide a much more softer, forgiving cut. So both of these are set differently in order to achieve the desired outcome. Now, something I could do to make my life a little bit easier when it comes to using these trimmers and putting in that harsh trimmer guideline is I can actually have both of my trimmers set a little bit differently. Now, if you look at this little zero gap tool, one of the sides on the top, it says soft, and the other side, it says zero gap aggressive. Now, what I chose to do here with my boosted trimmer was I set it aggressively. This is set really sharp. What I did with my cyborg trimmer is I set it soft. So this means I can use this on the neck, I can use this in sensitive areas, I can use this on kids, but when I need something to really put sharp lines in, you're going to see me grab this boosted trimmer. It's also going to come in handy towards our troubleshooting phase of the haircut. In general, I will put this line in with my soft set trimmer because it's going to be easier for me to remove it. However, towards the end of my haircut, if I'm struggling to remove it, first thing I'm going to do is pick up the same one I put it in with and see if that gets it out. If that doesn't get it out, that's exactly why I have this zero gapped aggressively so that it will remove that skin line. Usually, a combination of these two things is going to remove that harsh skin line. This is something that I get asked all the time. I'm starting to get my stuff together. I'm understanding how to cut hair, but I can't remove that bottom guideline. We already know that the taper blade is going to be a much softer guideline. It's also going to leave the hair a little bit longer. So for you guys who are new, a lot of times I would put this line in with my taper blade because you know it's going to be super easy to take out and you have options below to help you get the blend perfect. So hopefully that goes a little ways in helping you to understand exactly how that guideline on the bottom can be removed, no matter how harsh you put it in. But even with everything I just said, there still might be an additional step required. Now you'll notice I have two electric shavers here. One is my Uno and the other one is the all new Metal Instincts. Now the Instincts cut so strong and remove hair so fast that it might be a little bit difficult for me to blend that out. So when I get to the end and the troubleshooting phase of my haircut, I've already used both of my trimmers and this line is still here. This is when you're gonna see me usually pick up my Uno. I'm gonna tap down, I'm gonna use just a corner, I might flick up, but usually some combination of a movement with this is going to remove that guideline. If you don't have that, you can do the same thing with your main shaver. However, there's a much better chance you're probably gonna make a mistake because hair that is short enough to actually get cut by this, especially with this one, is going to just disappear from that. Now, of course, I'm going to use the Uno 2.0 for all the obvious reasons. Tapers, high taper, low taper, skin fades, low skin fades, going around the ear. If you're a cosmetologist and you can't use the razor, maybe to give that razor-like finish. There's just too many positives to not have a single foil shaver. And I think as these started to come out, I really started to see and understand exactly what I should have been doing all along. So hopefully you'll use all this to your advantage. And let's talk about one other thing before we start the actual haircut. Okay, so I always get a couple of questions about how do I get just the zero gapping tool. This tool will come with your cyborg trimmer. It will also come with your boosted trimmers. And there's probably a few others that it might come with, okay? But if you don't have that, there's actually a better way to do this. And that way is with this little tool right here, which I use all the time. I could put my trimmer underneath this digital microscope. These are like $50 and I could check it from one side to the other. And just looking at my cyborg, I could tell that somewhere along the lines, it's not set properly. So I could easily fix this. You see how the cutting blade teeth are back a little bit on the left side of the blade? And then when I look on the right, they're pretty fairly zero gapped. So this blade has gotten twisted somehow or another, maybe throwing it in a drawer, but this is something I constantly use. This for the maintenance to check all my tools and make sure all my tools are set up properly and perfectly zero gapped. Another tool I actually use an awful lot is actually this #1 rated screwdriver from Amazon. I joke about it all the time, but with the amount of different things that we're doing here all the time, we're always testing clippers, we're swapping lids, we're zero gapping things, and having an electric screwdriver, especially one like this that isn't super strong, which is exactly what I want, it's only going to be a net positive. But I would definitely encourage you guys to get familiar with setting up your machines, troubleshooting your machines, and being able to get them to perform their best. Some people out here will rely on other people in the shop. Maybe it's a jobber who comes by and sells you things and he'll set it for you, or other people in the shop with more experience than you will set it for you. That's all well and good to get you off the ground, but at the end of the day, when you're alone, when you're by yourself and something happens to one of your tools, you should be able to have the basic understanding of how to fix it. And if you don't, you guys can check out some of the tool videos that I've dropped below where I really get into depth on exactly how and why I'm doing some of this. I love this thing. It just clicks in and now it's not going anywhere. So hopefully it's sinking in for you guys right now, especially those of you guys who are struggling. Why isn't my work coming out properly? Why am I struggling? The answer probably is your setup. If your technique is good, and we're gonna get into the technique in just a second. However, just a very basic setup. Most barbers actually have more than this, but a very basic setup would be one trimmer that is aggressively zero gapped, one trimmer that is soft set, one clipper that is zero gapped, one clipper that is soft set. And if we're looking for a soft set and we want to have the ability to get into that half guard area, if we set that machine so it's not zero gapped, we're actually going to have a much better chance at blending out those areas, and especially at the end, troubleshooting your blend. Okay, so right off the rip here, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start working with our number 4 guard in the closed position. I have the brand new Metal Instincts. If you guys have some questions about this tool, you guys can check out the new review that I recently released. All we're trying to do here is lead the hair with the comb, and we're trying to get every single piece of this hair towards the top, cut down to a number 4. Another tool that I didn't talk about during our setup phase, but this tool is pretty awesome. This is actually a skin clipper. And what this actually does is this can take the place of your trimmer to some extent. It can actually take a lot more abuse than a trimmer, and it's gonna preserve the integrity of your blades so that you're not using a trimmer to put your zero line in. And also you can put guards on here and just remove bulk pretty effortlessly with this. And that was the tool that I chose to use to put in my skin line. But if you don't have this, you can put in your line with a trimmer, and underneath this step, we're gonna be using our electric shaver. This isn't super important that it's perfect, but you definitely wanna make sure that it's balanced on both sides and that the line isn't all jacked up all the way around the head, because it's going to be the foundation of how you set your other guidelines. So let's try to get this right. Now, if you didn't properly debulk the hair, you're gonna notice in the back, I did not properly debulk the hair, so I was not able to make a good line there. So I didn't run that number 4 low enough in his crown to make that happen. So you're actually gonna see me go back and kind of repeat that step. We move on to our electric shaver. You're never gonna find an electric shaver that cuts quite as fast as this. In fact, the babeless shaver is close, but with the ability that this has with intuitive torque control to speed up when it senses resistance, it's going to lay waste to any hair that's in front of it. So our goal here, 2 different things we could do. One, we can run it straight into this line, which is going to make it a little more difficult. But if you're newer to this and you want to see some positive results, because I think it's really important that we develop a little bit of positive momentum, you guys need to get some reps in. You guys need to get some confidence built. Stop a little bit short of this, flick up and out, and make sure that there is no line between where you went with your electric shaver and where you went with your trimmer. I don't know whatever happened to the world of barbering, but when I first started cutting hair, I didn't just dive right into doing skin fades. I mastered a couple of the basics, and one of the basics I really think you can master before you move forward is using a number 2 on the back and sides and scissors on top. So I really don't understand where this mentality came from, that we're just gonna jump in there and go for the hardest haircut there is. That would be sort of like me training for one day, I'm gonna start running, and then tomorrow I'm gonna go run a marathon. I think it's a little silly. I think there's a certain amount of skills that you can build that help lead you up to this and make you more proficient in the long run, so that we can actually separate this into 2 parts, the skin fade to a number 2 and the 2 above that into anything that we want. With our clipper that is zero gapped in the open position, we're gonna go through and we're gonna set our open taper guideline. I'm not going to concern myself really at all with trying to remove this line. I'm just going to set in a nice balanced guideline all the way around the head. So once again, I'm a big fan of skipping steps. We're actually going to equip our number 1 guard, and we're going to go 2 clicks open. So the other nice thing about a lot of clippers today, but especially this Instinct, is it has the clicks, detent levers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, we're gonna go 2 clicks down, 1, 2. You can feel free to play with the lever all that you want in this step. It's just for the first few steps as I go into this, I'm starting to flick, I'm starting to lift off. I wanna see what the number 1 guard is actually capable of doing, and by only closing it 2 steps, I can get a better idea. Then of course I can open it and I can close it in the step, which I'm going to. The follow-up step is actually gonna be exactly the same, but we're gonna put on the 1.5 guard and we're gonna go 2 clicks, 1, 2. Another difficulty of filming haircuts is if I stood the way I would normally stand, the camera would be directly behind me and all you would see is my back. When you're actually cutting hair, you wanna have your arm close to your body, you wanna be kind of anchored here, and you're gonna be much more accurate with your movements when you do this. I really love these tight guards. These are double magnetic. They cut a little bit closer than the other guards. They go from a 0.5 up to a number 2, and they have some fairly short teeth, so they make it a little bit easier to get in some of the hard to reach spots. I'm just gonna say, they definitely make blending a little bit easier. So I'm gonna take my measuring tape and I'm gonna put it on my clipper. You'll notice that it's just shy of 2 inches. One thing that you're going to see me constantly doing whenever I'm blending is I'm always going to be making sure that I'm working it on angles. Sometimes I'm only using a couple of teeth on the blade. Sometimes it looks like I might be holding it horizontal, but I actually only have one of the teeth touching the skin at the time. When you make a mistake, which is inevitably going to happen, you do not want to have a 2-inch line across your client's head. If we make a mistake, it's a lot better that we make a small mistake, which is why you see me using angles to create the blend. You're going to start to notice that even though I did a 4 on top, it's going to start blending in pretty good. This will be the very last step that I'm going to use before I start to knock out my bottom line. The harshest line that I've put in is I'm actually going to redouble my efforts back to my half guard. In fact, this is like a little bit of a surprise to me when I'm watching this video. I guess my brain must have just went there. And yes, on the heels of the half guard, I'm going to go ahead, and if I feel like I need to, which in this case I did, I'm going to bounce back to the number 1. Now what you're looking at here is a haircut that actually took place during the day. Normal haircut, 25-30 minutes in and out the door. All right, I didn't do this haircut with the intention of anything other than, just servicing a client. And I think when I released that poll the other day, I said, what would you rather have? A haircut that takes an hour and a half, 2 hours, and it's absolutely perfect, or a barber who's on time and gives you a quality cut? And this is what my shop is all about. We don't charge thousands of dollars for a haircut. But I want to give you one quick piece of advice. If any of this is causing you some grief and you're having some trouble knocking out one of these steps, do yourself a favor, just skip it and return back to it a little bit later in the haircut with a fresh pair of eyes. I learned that one from E.T. the Barber, and it goes directly against my nature to not fix a problem on the spot. It's just the way I'm built. And I would say that actually turned out to be some pretty good piece of advice, because there's been plenty of times where I've returned to a trouble spot and I fix it like that. And I don't know why I was struggling before. So now that's been an ongoing thing that I've been doing. So now we're gonna begin knocking out this skin line. And if you notice, I got my thumb on the top. I'm kind of folding over the hair, and I actually have my clipper completely in the closed position. So again, completely closed. I'm gonna push down on the skin, and I'm gonna bump just a couple of teeth. All right, I like to use just maybe 2-3 teeth, especially for this spot. Now, it might seem like it's gonna take me forever to do it this way, but the truth is, if I'm thorough and I run through each one of my detemp lever positions, I'm actually going to save time, believe it or not. So all I'm going to be doing, I might use it on both different directions, both different sides. If you guys haven't seen my clipper manipulation videos or any of the videos where I discuss that, that's sort of what we're doing here, a little bit of a manipulation. Whenever I am blending, you're never gonna really see me holding it straight and flat like this. Most of the time I'm gonna be on an angle, but if you do see it straight and flat, it's just because only one side or the other side is actually touching down at the time. I'm gonna go through each one of these different little steps here until I'm back in the open position. Now, because I did such a nice setup on the top, I'm gonna wind up pretty much being done with the haircut when I'm done with this point. And that's why I like to kind of save this skin line part for last. I didn't always like to do it this way, but I do think it actually makes a lot of sense. And I think for you guys, it's gonna help you build some confidence in the rest of your haircut. Now, I'm fighting with it a little bit, so I'm gonna drop back to my soft set trimmer, and I'm gonna go into that line a little bit. And that's the whole point of having all my tools set up correctly. If I go into the soft set trimmer, that doesn't do it. I can pick up my boosted trimmer, that might do it. Of course, if you guys need any of these tools, you will find them linked down below. I know some of this stuff has been out of stock for a while, but Stylecraft is doing a good job. There's a couple of shipments coming in, and if you guys pre-order this stuff, you definitely got a better chance of getting it. And if you guys use my code Eddie, you will save 15% off of your purchase. Also, we are affiliated with Williamsport Barber Supply, and you guys can feel free to use my code Eddie10 and save 10% off of all your tools outside of Stylecraft and Gamma. But if there's a couple of tools that I would say non-negotiable, definitely get yourself at least these tight guards. This is definitely gonna help. So at this point in the haircut, I've been doing a little bit of troubleshooting. As you've seen, I went to my soft set trimmer, I went to my taper blade, I went back to my electric shaver, and I'm going to bounce around a little bit until I figure out exactly how to get this to lay properly. No client situation is ever gonna be the same. It's gonna be different on one side of the haircut versus the other side of the haircut, and having all your tools set properly and knowing how to use them, and then knowing when it's time to put the clippers down and pick up the shear over comb, which we really need to revisit that video. I'm gonna be making another shear over comb video. I know I've been saying this for a little while, but I'm definitely gonna be doing it. Now, if this interests you, if you guys would like to spend 3 hours intense hands-on class with me We are going to be doing this first one here in Orlando. The Orlando premiere show, I believe it is the 1st. I'll put it right here. And I'll tell you guys the time of the class. You guys can check it down in the description. You do have to sign up for this class. You will be provided a mannequin. We're gonna have some tools. We're gonna get hands-on, and we're gonna work for 3 hours until you guys understand every bit of this stuff. And I promise you, if you join me in this class, you guys can't lose. All right, you guys are gonna wind up emerging to be better barbers than you were when you first got in. And now we're gonna move on to the edge up. So if I just draw a little bit of an edge up here, in a perfect world where clients come in with perfect hair, you'll be able to make this perfect every time. But in the real world, down here where we actually live, people are going to come in with imperfect scenarios in their hair. And your job is to not take too much of their hairline, because as soon as it starts to grow back, they're gonna look bad, and that's gonna make you look bad also. So a couple of little tips that I will give you. One of the tips that I will give you is, let's say that this client comes in and his hairline is more like this. We decide which side we wanna start on. If you start on this high side, there's a very good chance that you're gonna wind up pushing this high side even higher, which is going to make it so you're gonna wind up really struggling. So when you have this situation and you spoke with the client and he does want to make it straight, okay, we're definitely going to always try to start on the low side. I usually like to start where there's an imperfection. And in this case, with Kyle here, his hairline's actually pretty good. And for the most part, we're not even really getting into the hairline so much as we are just getting into the bangs. So any of that hair that just kind of hangs over, we're going to cut that. I'm using those boosted trimmers. They're set super sharp, and they're gonna go through there and they're gonna take that out. A couple of other little tips would be, I'm always anchoring a couple of different ways. So if you see me with really any trimmer, you're gonna see that I'm usually using some of my tips of my fingers or maybe my knuckle, and then I'm also gonna anchor here. And then my third anchor point is actually gonna be when I touch the client. Some of you guys are like, when I do some of those trimmer shootouts, you're like,
why is your hand shaky?
Because my hand shakes sometimes. And if your hand shakes sometimes, I would tell you to get a heavier trimmer. And that's where this cyborg comes in handy. It's a heavier trimmer. It steadies me out if I don't feel super steady that particular day. And that's what barbering is, man. It's a practice. It's about using the things that are gonna give you the best chance at success. A lot of times I work out before I come here in the morning, and yeah, my hand might shake for a little while. So what? Sue me. So pick tools that make sense for you. And that's why some people like heavier tools versus lighter tools. And that's why I really love what Stylecraft is doing and Gamma is doing, because they make a wide variety of tools for everybody, for every situation that you could find yourself in. On the silhouette, I like to actually return to a little bit of clipper over comb there and blend that out, or shear over comb and use shear over comb to kind of blend that out as well. All right, you guys, we're gonna finish up the very last couple of steps using our Instinct shaver. Make sure that we got all those little hairs. This thing will cut you down to the bone. And I really hope that you guys enjoyed this lesson, not so much a tutorial. I realize it was very long, and I just tell you guys, go ahead and give yourself a round of applause right here. If you made it through this whole video, I really do appreciate you guys, and this is my way of giving back to you. During the CT Barber Expo, a lot of you had came up to me, shook my hand, and told me I really made a difference.
But the cool thing is being in a room where everybody understands the benefit that we are gonna get from just doing it. You know what I'm saying? 100%. So we gotta do it.
It's not easy to do tutorials this in depth. This is not exciting. This is not sometimes what I want it to be, but just knowing that I've impacted some students and I've really helped you guys to grow, that's enough for me, man. So I really appreciate all of you guys for rocking with me as you have. So you guys can check the links down below for the class if you want to join me in the class. With that being said, this is the YouTube Barber Academy. Over 800 videos to help you learn and growing. And drop a comment if there's something I didn't explain well, if there's something you didn't understand. Really trying to just get better at this whole process and these lessons that we're dropping throughout the process. So I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'm out. Peace.